Last year, central banks bought more gold than at any time since 1971. You didn't see it on the news. You weren't supposed to. For decades, they told you gold is dead. They mocked it. They said the future was paper, numbers on screens, promises backed by nothing. But while you believed the lie, the world's most powerful players, billionaires, banks, entire nations, were quietly filling vaults you will never see. Why? What storm are they preparing for that you're not meant to survive? The answer is buried in the metal they told you to forget. Gold was once the ultimate measure of wealth. For thousands of years, empires rose and fell on it. Kings waged wars for it. Nations built their entire economies upon it. Gold was power, pure, unquestionable, untouchable. It was the one thing rulers could trust when everything else collapsed. But then, something changed. Not overnight, but slowly, like poison spreading through the bloodstream of the global economy. In the 20th century, as the dollar emerged as the world's currency, a new war was launched. Not a war fought on battlefields, a war fought in the mind. The narrative began to shift. Headlines that once praised gold now ridiculed it. Economists on primetime television called it a barbarous relic, echoing the words of John Maynard Keynes as if the phrase were gospel. Commercials praised the brilliance of paper assets, safe, modern, sophisticated. Suddenly, real wealth wasn't something you could hold. It was digits on a screen, promises backed by nothing but faith. And the campaign was relentless. Hollywood didn't glorify vaults filled with gold. It glorified Wall Street traders chasing numbers. Financial magazines stopped featuring gold coins. They pushed stocks, mutual funds, derivatives, the new ways to build fortune. The message was clear. If you still believed in gold, you were old-fashioned, a fool clinging to the past. But ask yourself, why was this message so aggressive? Why did they invest so much effort to make you believe gold had lost its power? Because controlling perception is far more powerful than controlling gold itself. If they can convince millions to give it up, to stop valuing it, then it stays concentrated where it truly matters, in the hands of those who understand its real power. The irony? While the public sold their coins, melted their jewelry, and traded physical wealth for promises, the elite were doing the opposite. In secret, behind closed doors, they were buying. Billionaires moved gold into private vaults in Zurich and Singapore. Governments quietly increased their reserves, stockpiling the very thing they called useless, and the public never noticed. If this truth already feels like a secret worth sharing, hit the like button so more people can see what was never meant to surface. The deception ran deep. During the 1970s, after Nixon ended the gold standard, the U.S. told the world the dollar was now as good as gold. But at the very same time, the government continued to guard Fort Knox with military precision. If gold was irrelevant, why keep it under such protection? Then came the financial booms, the 80s, the 90s, the tech bubble. Paper wealth exploded, and with it, the illusion of infinite prosperity. But behind the curtain, something didn't add up. Gold, the relic, quietly rose in value during every single crisis. Each time the system trembled, investors who mocked it suddenly scrambled to buy it. And every time, the elite were already ahead of the curve. Think about it. Why would they orchestrate such an elaborate narrative only to do the opposite of what they tell you to do? Why ridicule what they secretly hoard? The answer is unsettling. Because gold isn't just a metal, it's a key to power that doesn't depend on governments, banks, or the promises of anyone. It's the one thing that survives when everything else burns. And they know it. That's why they worked so hard to erase it from your mind. Because if you understood its real value, you wouldn't play their game. So ask yourself, if gold was truly useless, Why did they fight so hard to convince you it was? What are they hiding behind the narrative they built? The propaganda war was only the surface, because while you were looking at paper, numbers, and screens, they were preparing for something entirely else, and that preparation is where the real story begins. While the public was told gold was useless, something else was quietly happening, a surge so discreet it barely left a trace in the media, an accumulation so vast it could rewrite the rules of power, but only for those who knew where to look. Behind the headlines about markets and innovation, vaults were filling, not with paper, not with digital promises, with the very metal they had convinced you to ignore. Look at the numbers. Since 2010, central banks have been buying gold at a pace not seen since the early Cold War. By 2023, they had added over 1,000 tons in a single year, the largest purchase on record. Yet where were the headlines? You didn't see them, because silence is part of the plan. The less you know, the stronger their position. Countries you wouldn't expect joined this silent race. Russia shielded itself from dollar sanctions by hoarding gold, cutting its dependence on Western currencies. China moved tons into state-controlled vaults, often reporting only fragments of what they really own. Even European nations, Germany, Hungary, Poland, took back gold stored abroad, repatriating reserves under heavy security. When asked why, officials spoke vaguely about strategic reasons and national security. But what kind of threat requires thousands of bars under military guard? It wasn't just governments. Ultra-wealthy families, dynasties you never see on the Forbes list, quietly secured their fortunes in private vaults, underground bunkers in the Swiss Alps, fortified storage in Singapore, even secret facilities carved into New Zealand hillsides where access is granted to only a handful of people on Earth. These vaults have no signs, no windows, no public records. What lies inside is invisible to the financial system and untouchable in a crisis. Meanwhile, ordinary people were told to trust the system, invest in paper, trust digital assets, believe that printed money is as good as gold, because paper can be created at will and controlled. Gold cannot. Idea. If this investigation already feels like opening a forbidden file, subscribe now. The deeper we go, the more secrets we uncover, and you'll want to see them before they disappear. The scale of this accumulation is not paranoia. It's not random, it's preparation. Each bar stacked in those vaults is a silent declaration they don't believe the system will last forever, and they're getting ready for the day it doesn't. Ask yourself, if everything was under control, why would they move like this? Why would nations bypass the dollar and hedge with gold? Why would billionaires bet their future on something they tell you is outdated? The truth is unsettling, because gold isn't just an asset. It's power outside their rules. It's the one thing they can hold when everything else collapses. They know the storm is coming, and when it does, gold won't just be valuable. It will be the ultimate measure of survival. This hidden stockpiling is only the surface, because the moment crises hit, the truth about gold doesn't just appear, it explodes. Every market crash, every economic panic, every collapse tells the same story. Gold rises while everything else burns. The cracks are already forming, and soon you'll see why this metal, the one they told you to forget, is always at the center when the system breaks. That's where the real disconnect begins, and where the stakes become deadly. Every financial crisis leaves behind a trail of panic. Banks fail, Markets collapse. Paper wealth evaporates overnight. And yet, one thing always rises quietly through the smoke: gold. This pattern has repeated for decades, and yet most fail to see it. In 1971, the United States cut the dollar's link to gold. The world was promised stability under a new system, the dollar as the global standard. But as inflation surged and currencies trembled, gold began its silent climb. In 1987, during the infamous market crash known as Black Monday, stocks plunged while gold remained solid, a refuge amid chaos. Then came 2008, as banks imploded and governments scrambled to print trillions, gold soared to record highs. And again in 2020, when a pandemic froze economies and fear consumed markets, investors abandoned risky assets and rushed toward the one thing they could still trust. These were not coincidences. These were the system's moments of truth, each revealing the same secret: when confidence dies, only gold survives. Here lies the disconnect. The narrative says gold is outdated, a relic of the past. But history keeps exposing this lie. Every time the world shakes, even those who publicly dismiss gold, central bankers, hedge fund managers, politicians, suddenly want more of it. They mock it on camera and then buy it off camera. They call it useless, yet store it in vaults protected like national secrets. Why this double game? Because the modern financial system is built on faith, and faith is fragile. Paper money only holds value as long as people believe in it. The moment that belief breaks, in war, in hyperinflation, in a bank run, paper dies. Gold doesn't. Gold doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't rely on trust in a government or a bank. It simply holds value, as it always has. Behind the scenes, powerful institutions admit this truth, quietly. Leaked reports from major financial groups mention emergency scenarios where gold becomes the ultimate hedge. Military documents list gold among assets essential for national security during currency crises. Central banks, as revealed in classified discussions, treat gold not as an investment, but as a weapon, a tool to outlast financial warfare. This isn't just about survival, it's about dominance. In every economic collapse, those who hold gold don't just protect themselves, they control what comes next. They dictate the terms of the recovery. While ordinary citizens watch their savings evaporate, those with gold buy assets at pennies on the dollar and emerge more powerful than before. Picture the next crash. Screens flash red, banks restrict withdrawals, digital payments freeze, credit cards stop working. In that chaos, who holds leverage? Not those holding paper promises, not those with digits in an online account, only those holding something real. This is the gold disconnect, the gap between what they tell you and what they do. The elite don't just accumulate gold, they position themselves to rule when the financial order collapses. Every crisis strengthens them because they play by rules you were never taught. The propaganda told you gold was irrelevant, but history keeps proving the opposite. And now the timeline between crises is shrinking. Debt is higher than ever. Currencies are weakening. Trust in institutions is eroding at record speed. The moves happening today, record gold purchases, secret repatriations, private stockpiling, are not random. They are a warning. Because the next collapse isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when it comes, the disconnect will snap, and with it, the illusion that paper wealth can save you. In the shadows of this coming storm, something even more dangerous is unfolding. Nations are not just buying gold, they are preparing to use it as a weapon that doesn't just protect wealth, but rewrites the balance of global power. And as that weapon is quietly loaded, the world edges closer to a moment where gold will decide who holds power and who loses everything. The pattern is clear. Every crisis pushes gold to the center of power. But what's happening now is different. This isn't just accumulation, it's positioning, and the clock is ticking. For decades, the dollar ruled as the world's reserve currency. Every major trade, every oil deal, every financial transaction flowed through it. But today, cracks are forming in that dominance. Countries once dependent on the dollar are moving away from it, quietly but decisively. China has been leading this charge. Through covert agreements and massive gold purchases, it is preparing for a world where trade no longer depends on the US currency. Russia, under heavy sanctions, has doubled down, linking parts of its economy to gold and cutting ties with Western financial systems. Even allies of the United States, countries in Europe and the Middle East, are hedging their bets, diversifying reserves, and strengthening their gold positions. Why does this matter? Because gold is the only universal language of trust when currencies are in doubt, and the more nations rely on it, the weaker the dollar's grip becomes. But there's a deeper layer to this. Gold isn't just being hoarded, it's being weaponized. Behind closed doors, deals are being struck. Energy for gold trades, bypassing the dollar entirely. Whispers of a new financial architecture, one not controlled by Washington or Wall Street, are growing louder. This isn't speculation. In 2023, the BRICS nations openly discussed creating a trade currency backed, at least partially, by gold. Such a move would shake the foundation of the global financial order, and the elite know it. That's why they're accelerating their preparations while the public remains distracted. Imagine what happens when confidence in the dollar cracks, when nations stop trusting the system that has ruled for decades. What do they turn to? Not crypto, not paper. They turn to the one asset that doesn't need a promise to hold value. This countdown is silent but relentless. Every ton of gold moved, every vault filled, every secret deal signed is a step closer to a reset. A reset where those holding real assets rewrite the rules. And when that moment comes, the public won't see it until it's too late. Their money will buy less. Their savings will vanish in the fog of devaluation, while the elite, shielded by their gold, step into the new order already holding the winning hand. The propaganda machine will say this is all under control, that the system is stable. But the moves being made in the shadows tell a different story. They tell of leaders preparing for a storm that will hit harder than any before. Because this time, the shift won't just affect markets, it will reshape global power itself. Nations will rise and fall not with armies, but with what lies in their vaults. The silent countdown is almost complete, and when the clock hits zero, the world you know will change in an instant. But this story isn't over, because the final piece isn't about nations or banks. It's about an entire generation that's been cut out of the dream, forced to face a future built on debt, fear, and manipulation. And they're starting to see the truth. Gold was never useless. It was never outdated. It was the one truth buried under decades of lies. While they told you to trust paper, they were stacking metal. While they told you the system was unbreakable, they built escape routes in vaults you will never see. And when the cracks appear, as they always do, they will walk away untouched, holding the only thing that survives every collapse. You were never supposed to see this. You were never meant to question why they hoard what they call worthless. But now you know. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Because the next storm is coming. And when it hits, the game resets. Not for everyone, only for those who hold the truth in their hands. If this opened your eyes, hit the like button so more people can uncover what was meant to stay hidden. And subscribe, because the secrets they bury next, we'll expose them here. The only question is, when the world breaks, what will you be holding?